What's up, y'all? Welcome to episode 32 of the Sports Hour Plus with Miller and Watson. Obviously, for those of you that know, Morgan is celebrating her last day of being an engaged slash single person because she will be officially married tomorrow. So, in her stead, I brought on Jovan, Jovan Alford from Total Sports Live, and my boy Clarence Taylor the third, Trey.
Yes, sir.
I know some of y'all might be like, "Wait, where's Trey? Trey's right there." His government name is Clarence Taylor the
Yes,
third.
sir.
So, shouts out to both of them for being here in Morgan's stead. What's up, y'all? How y'all doing?
Doing good.
I'm doing good. I'm feeling good. It's Friday. TGIF.
Good, man. Yes, yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. So, yeah, if you want to follow us, Morgan is at M_India_Miller. I am at Kyler W. Watson. Jovan is at Jovan10. Stay tuned. Stay tuned to him for all your sports betting, all that stuff. Jovan's got you. Even got some baseball props, probably somewhere on his Twitter somewhere. Getting ready for All Star Weekend, right, Jovan?
Yeah, man.
No, not today.
No, not yet. I actually got some stuff. I just haven't put it out yet, but
Okay. All
it'll
right,
get
so
there.
that's what we call a tease in our business. And Trey is at Mr. Taylor Third on Instagram. Trey doesn't really keep. I mean, his Twitter's there, but he doesn't really
Yeah,
use it.
if
So
you want to, you can try to figure out how to spell my name backwards, and that's my Twitter. So I'll let those who are watching try to figure that one out.
yeah. All right, guys. So we've got breaking news from a few days ago. According to the Associated Press, a jury orders the NFL to pay nearly $4.8 billion in a Sunday ticket case for violating the antitrust laws. Wow, guys. So what's your reaction? What's our reaction to that? Jovan, you want to start here?
I, it's not surprising. I mean, just knowing just how the NFL does business. I mean, them taking it to this level just shows just how they do business. I think there was a story, I think that came out like earlier this month where they said like ESPN actually like proposed like this package to the NFL where they was like, we'll give like Sunday ticket to people for like $70, and then we'll have like individual team packages, which it works for the consumer. You got to think the NFL. You probably think like, what? This is great money, right? We'll get whole Sunday ticket, but then we can sell like individual team, packages. Like, hey, like if you just want all Falcons game, we'll give you all Falcons. You want all Cowboys, give you all Cowboys. So you think that's a great deal, and then it was like the NFL declined it. So it's just like, what's really the end game here? So to see, the legal system work out in this way where the NFL has to pay this much for a Sunday ticket, it's I think it's just as well due. Will it change anything? I don't know, because the NFL always finds a way to win. They always will, have various different ways to put games out there, to the point where we have games on Netflix this year. So they're going to find any and every way to kind of promote their games and get it on air. But Sunday ticket, I think it's definitely a start, just because it's just a lot of weird things that was happening with that, as as we uncovered, the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, definitely. Trey, you got anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, no, I agree. I mean, it's the NFL is a giant corporation, and then you got 32 other corporations that fall under, the head of the NFL, ran by the commissioner. Um, so I'm not surprised. I mean, that if especially for those who are like myself who live out of market,
Mm-hmm.
I follow Philly sports, but I live in Atlanta, and it's tricky trying to watch NFL games on Sunday. So and I don't have cable. I don't have, and I definitely did not have DirecTV. So when you think about that, it's from a consumer standpoint, it's like, well, what the heck, right? But it goes on an even more macro level. It's an issue when you think about even just like regular streaming of non-sports stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
Thinking about, okay, I want to watch my favorite show, like let's say Stranger Things, right? But I don't have if you don't have a subscription to Netflix, and then they've
Right.
done their whole thing with the password sharing, and
Mm-hmm.
so this is an example on the micro level with sports, but it's not just a sports issue when it comes to kind of maybe hoarding a particular product when it comes to what you can watch and when you can watch it, how you can watch it, where you can watch it, literally speaking from a location standpoint. So yeah, we'll see. My understanding is the NFL is going to appeal. I don't think that they're going to win necessarily. I think they'll have to pay whatever money they'll have to pay. The NFL itself is not going to pay the money. It's going to be the teams themselves. So this could be anywhere from $250 to $450 million per team that'll have to pay this money. We'll see how it plays out. But I'm not shocked because Sunday Ticket was, from a business standpoint, kind of an illegal standpoint, it makes sense why this ruling was made. So yeah.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's a prime example, of why the NFL tries to avoid, getting in front of a court, right? That's why they rather do arbitration because, like, if the NFL gets in front of a judge that actually sees their business practices, it's kind of like, what are you guys doing? Like, and this is why they lose. This is why they try to avoid getting into a court, right? I mean, we've seen it. Various things with the John Gruden lawsuit. They try and keep everything in arbitration so the dirty laundry never gets out. And now we get a little peek, behind, we're all three of us are I mean, this is before our time, but we've all seen the Wizard of Oz. It's kind of like the wizard when the wizard's revealed to just be a man in the Wizard of Oz. Like, don't pay attention over here. Like, that's the NFL, right? Like, look at this beautiful stuff, but not really, right? So, like I said off air to both Jovan and Trey, like, I'm happy that for those of you that have DirecTV and are impacted by this, you guys get your money. I will say personally that when I was in Syracuse for a year and a half, shout out to Central New York, good friend of mine, Danny Booth, he had Sunday Ticket, so all those out of market Eagles games that I could never watch, I can watch with him and his Sunday Ticket. So I will say Sunday Ticket is very good, as Trey said. When you're not in Philly or you're not in a big market, you do need that Sunday Ticket. That was just my experience with it. I don't have DirecTV either. We're a Fios family, and before that, a Comcast family over here. So it's a whole thing. But I am very happy. Y'all know I'm pro get your money. So I'm very happy that obviously, like, this is the one time that the law actually caught up with the NFL and they didn't settle. So they probably wish they did settle this case. But like Trey said, this payout will be by the NFL teams. But either way, somebody's getting their money, somebody who was cheated out of some NFL games. So I'm happy for that. And, free NFL Sunday Ticket, free NFL Red Zone for those people that care about that. I never really got I get the concept of Red Zone, but I never understood why you want to get half a game. Like, you miss a half a drive and it picks up at the 10 or 20. I'm correct. Both of y'all can correct me if I'm wrong, right? The 20-yard line is where Red Zone picks up. Am I wrong?
I believe so. I think that's why it's called NFL Red Zone.
Yeah, some of the time, most of the times, then when they flip to like the 4 o'clock window, they'll be like, we're on the opening kickoff of like the 4 o'clock games where there's only like 3 of them on.
Okay.
So they be a little bit judicious with showing more, but 1 o'clock, like you said, it's kind of all over the place.
Yeah, man. So I'm happy for y'all that can get that. But yeah, man, yeah, definitely check this out. But yeah, following up on that, will this change the way the NFL does business? I started with Jovan, so I'll start with Trey here.
Structurally, yeah. I mean, Kylan, Jovan, I come from an accounting background, so from a business standpoint, yes. Like, obviously, Sunday Ticket is going to change. That they might do some changes with like subscription model and stuff and how that works. And obviously they're going to have to change how they implement it, whether they win an appeal or there's a new ruling that is made where maybe they don't have to pay out as much or whatever the case may be. So yes, in that sense, it'll change how they do business, but from an ownership of the product on the field, I don't think so. Not necessarily because, but it's the NFL. Like it's what's on the field is technically their product. And so from that standpoint, I don't see NFL shifting their perspective on how they view what is their product, right? Like if I had a, let's say I made a short film or something like that, like it's my short film, I made it, right? I should be able to put it where I want to. That's how the NFL views NFL games on Sunday, Monday, Thursday night, and then when you have the special showings on like Saturday nights. But so yeah, I think it'll slightly change, but not. I don't think you're going to see any drastic changes of how we view games on Sunday.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Fame. I don't see a drastic change in it. I mean, like Trey said, right? The league isn't going to pay for this. The teams are, so maybe it will change business because I don't think teams every time this type of situation happens wants to be paying, $450 million. Like that's not like $100,000 fine here. That's a lot of money that each of these teams got to, cough up and pay. So I don't think it will. I mean, I think if they want to do right from the consumer, they will, because you don't want to sell these games at an inflated price. I mean, I know just from the fact of how they were trying to sell Sunday ticket just last season, but this wasn't people that had Dish. It's people that had like YouTube TV, and they were trying to package it with like Verizon and something like that, and was like $300, $400. Like that's insane. Like who has that type of bread? Even if you were like one of the biggest NFL fans, to just cough up like $400 on a whole bunch of games that you might not even get around to watching. Like you're banking on people saying, all right, my team's not playing this week, so I'm going to flip around from one game to another game, when for all that, you can just watch Red Zone. So you hope business will change, because you got to do right by the consumer. You can't be charging inflated prices for things that you already know that fans will find a way to get around it. Like, let's be real. Like, they will find those streams and other means to get around, trying to watch these games.
Like I told you, I live in Atlanta. I have my ways of watching games when it's not a nationally televised game. I have my ways of still watching the games.
Don't tell on yourself. Yeah, like Trey and Jovan kind of hit it on the head, right? Like, I don't think this will change the way the NFL does business. I mean, it probably all but confirms that we'll probably get Sunday ticket on Netflix now. So like, or whatever it'll be, it'll probably go streaming or to Amazon, whichever streaming partner they decide. Unfortunately for DirecTV, I mean, I don't know why people get DirecTV. I won't hazard a guess, but I'm assuming that a big draw was NFL Sunday ticket and Red Zone. So I am we hope that the NFL changes its business, but as we all know, the NFL is a glutton for punishment. This is a company that up until like 2 years ago changed this concussion thing, because up until that point it said black people have like bigger brains, so like concussions aren't really a thing for them, and they only just changed that now, like in fairness to them 2-3 years ago, right? Like, so like this is like the NFL. This is why I say the NFL really doesn't want its dirty laundry aired out, right? This is an organization that settled with Colin Kaepernick and made it so, he's got the equivalent of an NDA. He still can't talk a super NDA. Like he still can't talk about that. Like, so, this is what the NFL does to keep its dirty laundry out. So, no, I still think, the Bible has a phrase that was done in the dark comes out to the light. Like, in this case, some of the NFL's dirty laundry came to the light, but I don't think they'll change business that much, other than, like I said, probably moving. I have no sources on this, but probably moving Sunday ticket. Y'all just got to look at as Trey would say, look through the weeds, like it's right there, right, to Amazon or Netflix, because you see that the NFL is getting more in bed with streaming, right? So I think that's the next step. So, if no one else has anything to add, I have joked that somebody would get traded as we're on air, and I was totally right. Shout out to Trey's, not really, his current city's Atlanta Hawks, because they made their decision. DeJounte Murray has been traded to the Pelicans, according to Woj. What's our reaction to this? I can start here. I'm shocked, bro. Like, of the two players between Murray and Trey Young, I thought they would get rid of Trey Young, just because, like, I feel like he fits next to Sachet better than DeJounte Murray fits better than Trey, because Trey isn't really that I mean, he is, but he gets like them like highlight assists instead of the regular assists. But they got rid of DeJounte I don't want to say got rid of. They traded DeJounte Murray. We don't really know what the framework is. All we know right now, as this airs at 7:18 Friday, June 18th, June 28th, that DeJounte Murray has been traded to the Pelicans. We don't know if Brandon Ingram's coming. We don't know anything else. We just know we're just saying right now. And Trey and Jovan, I know they're on Twitter right now, probably refreshing Will just tweet as we speak to correct me if I'm wrong here. But right now, I believe it's just DeJounte Murray. That's all we know right now. So, I really look forward to seeing DeJounte Murray and Zion Williamson, like them actually having like a real point guard, because like I love CJ McCollum, but he is not a point guard. He's a two guard. So like, having a real point guard, a defensive first point guard, I'm interested to see this. Obviously, we know DeJounte Murray is a little bit streaky, but the one thing that we do know is he can get you a bucket and at least get you a mid-range shot. He's a mid-range assassin, which will go great with Zion Williamson because he doesn't really have a jump shot yet. He'll get one eventually. And it's probably all but confirmed. I think that Brandon Ingram is gone, but obviously one has nothing to do with the other because Brandon Ingram is a forward and DeJounte Murray is a guard. But I can't wait to see those DeJounte Murray to Zion Williamson lobs. Murray back in the West Coast though. So which y'all not really, but y'all know Western Conference. What y'all think? Jovan, you got anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think we all kind of had an idea that the Hawks were going to move off of one of the two, but it just seemed like Trey Young was like the better option that you could probably just like pawn off and like try to get as much as you can from him, because I personally feel like Murray's the better fit for that team. And I feel like he kind of had to, even though I think in Atlanta, he became a better scorer. I mean, his 3-point percentage, I think, went up this season tremendously. So he did do that a little bit more, but I felt like his game kind of took a step back from where I think he was in San Antonio, where he was more the all-around point guard, like almost a walking triple-double in a lot of games. And to kind of see him had to take that step back in Atlanta because, like you said, Trey Young was more of the guy that had a ball in his hand and getting, the Fugazi assists, with just lob passes to Clint Capella, all game and racking those up. He kind of took the step back. So I think for the Pelicans, I mean, you didn't really have to give up a ton in the deal. You sent Larry Nance, Dyson Daniels, and, a couple of first-round picks. So that's not horrible, for the Pelicans, but it all depends on what's your end game, right? Are you like you mentioned, Colin, are you still keeping Brandon Ingram, with this core? Or are you moving off of CJ McCollum? Like, what's the end game here for the Pelicans? And then for the Hawks, who else is moving? Because I got to think, Capella's been mentioned in trade rumors.
DeAndre's next.
Yeah, so what's going to happen now?
Yeah. Trey, you got anything to add there?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I think in my mind, it made more sense to trade Trey Young. Although I live in Atlanta, my thing with Trey Young is, and Colin, you mentioned, was the whole, he's not a natural facilitator. He's a point guard and he's quick off the dribble, right? But he's really a 3-point. He's a scorer, right? That's his thing. Right. But because they run the offense through him, right, he's got a high usage rate. He's going to have a lot of assists, but he's not a facilitator. Whereas DeJounte Murray is more of a natural facilitator. He can give you, 18, 23 points, that type of thing, consistently, but he is a facilitator. So it makes, in my mind, I could have seen a world in which you traded Trey Young and kept DeJounte Murray, but obviously the Atlanta Hawks organization said, we're gonna get rid of DeJounte Murray and allow Trey Young to still be the face of the franchise in Atlanta.
Right,
and truthfully, they didn't give up that much. I mean, Dyson Daniels, good second year guard, but Larry Nance, veteran forward who's been a journeyman. He's been all over the place. Give up 2 first-round picks, one for the Lakers, which is not going to be really worth that much next year. And then, a 2027 first-round pick from the Bucks, which is not going to be, those are essentially second-round picks anyway. So you really didn't give up that much. You didn't get that much back for DeJounte Murray. And in my mind, DeJounte Murray is maybe not necessarily the better player, but maybe the better fit. So that's my question to the Atlanta Hawks organization is, what are you thinking here, right? And from the Pelicans standpoint, I think it's a great trade. The question is, like you guys both mentioned, are they keeping Brandon Ingram?
Okay.
So yeah.
Right. And then the other thing, y'all know we are all Philly boys. So y'all know the question that is echoing around Philly right now is that's all it took was DeJounte Murray and 2 first-round picks. Was Larry Nance and Dyson Daniels and 2 first-round picks. Y'all know what's next. How come the Sixers didn't do it? Yeah. Let me just say, we didn't expect obviously DeJounte Murray to get traded today when we were all planning this show. But, to the Sixers fans who wish, you could see DeJounte Murray, Tyrese Maxey, Joel Embiid, Tyrese Maxey, DeJounte Murray backcourt. I imagine that, the Hawks probably were not enamored by Paul Reed, maybe RC4, and 2 first-round picks, just because y'all have to remember that the Sixers really only have, 6 players now on the contract with Bona and McCain now on the contract, but obviously they weren't going to trade them. So I just think that, Paul Reed isn't really that attractive to people. And I think that's what it is. Like I say, it takes 2 to tango. Obviously, the Sixers aren't really in the 2-guard market because obviously, like, if DeJounte Murray came here, you're not putting Tyrese Maxey's still going to stay at PG. DeJounte Murray would go back to his more natural 2-guard. And obviously it takes 2 to tango here. So I am assuming that the Sixers didn't even think, kind of like what happened with Mikal Bridges probably, that this would happen, that all it took was Larry Nance. And sometimes you just need a stupid GM. I'm not saying that, the Pelicans got fleeced, but it seems like the Pelicans got fleeced because all it took was Larry Nance, Dyson Daniels, and obviously they got DeJounte Murray. But, DeJounte Murray and nothing else. I believe DeJounte Murray's under contract for like another year or 2 before he has to get a contract extension. So, like, if you really think about it from the Pelicans' perspective, right, if they keep Brandon Ingram, they got to pay him, got to pay Zion in another year or 2. You got to pay CJ. Like, they got to decide. And obviously, this is like Trey's language right here. You got the first and the second apron as well. This is the first off season with that. So I'm assuming that this was the move by the Pelicans to get off that, so they wouldn't go over maybe the first apron or the second. Obviously, they probably think that in trading Brandon Ingram or McCollum, whichever one gets traded, they'll get picks back on that one. So, but I just if you're a Sixers fan and your hair's falling out because you saw Caruso go to OKC for Josh Giddey, you see Mikal Bridges go for 5 picks. I just want to tell y'all that I just don't think Paul Reed, RC4, and a 2028 first-round pick is attractive. I could totally be wrong because it looks like the Clippers are imploding before our eyes. So that 2027 pick might look even better. And who knows? It seems like Russell's out, Paul George is out, James Harden is out, maybe. So I don't know if Kawhi Leonard's looking around, kind of like that childish Gambino meme where he comes back and it's just like everything's on fire. What the heck going on? So, like, who knows? Maybe Kawhi Leonard will force his way out too. So, this probably won't matter with the Clippers opening up their new stadium. Is it this year, Jovan? Or is it next year?
I think it should be this upcoming season. Okay, wow. I think it should be.
So they're probably gonna have nothing to go with it. So, like, that's just one of those things. I don't know if either one of you two have anything to add. Y'all know WIP and 97.5. Well, really, WIP is having a field day right now with the DeJounte Murray getting traded for Larry Nance. I don't have it on in the background. I just know how it works. Y'all got anything to add on that one?
No. I mean, would have been cool to have a Murray Maxey backcourt if you're the Sixers, yeah, because just for defensive purposes, right? The defender that DeJounte Murray had. But like you said, it shouldn't panic. And for the Pelicans, maybe there could have been a better deal out there because I just feel like, you got Murray, but if you're the Hawks, like you only got Dyson Daniels and Larry Nance, like I get Dyson is cool and the 2 first-round picks are even better. Just because I know everybody, especially the 2025 pick, with everybody looking forward to, this upcoming year's draft class. But
Cooper
Larry
Flag,
Nance,
baby.
yeah, I mean, Larry Nance just doesn't do anything. Just like
Right.
it's just like Larry Nance, Jalen Johnson, like the same
Yeah.
mold.
I think there's, I'm just kind of, spitballing here, but I'm just kind of scrolling through Twitter, and obviously the Lakers fans are out here saying, "Oh, there's going to be a trade for Trey Young." I don't necessarily think that could happen, but the Lakers pick is involved in that trade. So that there's always, when trades happen, it says, so and so is traded for so and so and this pick and that pick, and then 2 hours later you learn, this is actually part of a multiple team trade or something like that. So we don't know. It could actually turn out to be a multiple team trade. I don't necessarily think that is the case. However, obviously the Lakers are liable to make a big move as well. So
You hope. They hope. I know. Jovan, you still out at 7:30 or?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So I do want to give you a chance before you go to hit up on the draft. So you want to talk the whole draft or the Sixers draft?
A little bit of both. A little bit of both. We can do a little bit of both. I thought it was an interesting draft for how much people said it was bad. It was
So the NBA draft, right? Obviously, in Trey's new hometown, they're very happy that they got Shea. I hope I'm pronouncing his name right.
I think that's the best anybody's done it.
Yeah, I mean, I did have a couple years of French, so I better be able to pronounce that. So Shea and Sar, obviously DC is happy. They got a new big man who's probably going to leave them in 4 to 5 years. But I am, it wasn't a shock to me. I think the most shocking part of the draft was, like, I said last week, I don't know how you two felt about it, but I said the draft really began at number 3 with Houston, because we had no idea what Houston was going to do. I think everybody had some combination of Shea and Sar going 1-2. Whichever one Atlanta didn't pick would end up in DC. So I just kind of felt that way. I know Morgan, was happy for Klingon, but she probably thought he fell a little bit too much to Portland to her, probably. But yeah, I'm gonna let you go, because I know you gotta go, Jovan. But yeah, your reaction and your draft winners and losers. I know you probably want to talk some Sixers and Rich Paul too. So we gonna hit on.
Yeah, man. I think for the draft, I think what shocked me more so, I'll put this team as a winner. Just because I think they took a risk on this player, but I think it could bode well for them in the future. I think the Pistons getting Ron Holland. I know a lot of people were kind of down on the Ignite kids this year because just things just went sideways for Ignite, just record-wise and everything like that. But I think because Holland was kind of looked at the wild card because it's like he's 6'8", he's only 18 years old. Like the skills are there. Like once he fills out a little bit more and starts to really come into his own, like the Pistons could have something. And I think adding him, eventually whenever they find a head coach, because that's still a mystery.
Hey, the coach, the way it's going in Detroit, the coach could be somebody on this podcast. Who knows?
I mean, you never know. They might call
Trey,
all 3 of us.
Detroit. It worked out for the Lions, man. Pick somebody off the street.
Hey, you never know. So I think them getting Ron Holland, go with that core of Ivy and Cunningham and Duran, who I think is on the select team, this summer. So I think adding him there with the Thompson twin, I think you have like the foundational pieces there. It's now about, taking it, to that next level. I think obviously the Sixers are a draft winner. I think they address 2 big needs that I think, when we talk about the Sixers in the draft, you kind of wonder, like, okay, were they going to keep 16 and what were they going to do at 16? And it was like, as the draft board.
I think that was the big surprise that they made a pick.
Right. No, for real. Because it's like Daryl Morey don't make picks. He usually trades them for the DeAnthony Meltons and the Danny Greens of the world. So to be able to see them actually, the way that the board fell first and foremost was almost like a dream come true, because you're like, Dalton Connect's there, Jared McCain's there, like the shooters.
And there's some things had gone right the way I wanted to. Devin Carter would have been there.
Right. And that's what I was hoping too. I was like, okay, Devin Carter might be there. So like the player that you need is there. So I think them getting McCain at 16 is perfect. I know a lot of people are about defensively, worried about him and Maxey in the backcourt. We'll get there when we get there. Having his ability, scoring 15, 14 points a game, shooting 41% at Duke as a freshman, that is nothing to sneeze at, especially in the ACC this season. So I think adding him and then getting a backup big man and a Dumbona, I think that's going to be huge. It kind of puts Paul Reed on alert a little bit.
Best athlete in the draft, according to Jay Billis and them. So
yeah, so adding him, I think is going to be huge. Hopefully that means Paul Reed's going to play a little bit more 4.
Nah, you already know what that means, bro.
Yeah.
Already doing it.
His contract's non-guaranteed. So remember, his contract is non-guaranteed through January 10th of next year. So you might be right. The writing might be on the wall for him. So, but that's my initial draft thoughts.
All right. So before I let you go, and Trey and I handle the we'll get back to Trey because we're not ignoring each other. I know Jovan got to go. You want to hit this? Does Rich Paul have too much power, basically engineering Bronny James to the Lakers? It's gonna be interesting.
The way that Rich kind of maneuvered the last few weeks was a little strange. With him, putting out what he did an interview last week with Jonathan Givony with ESPN. Talking about everything and saying LeBron's not going to Phoenix for a vet min, and everybody's just like, okay, like who would even think about that possibility of LeBron getting a vet min? Like LeBron's still playing one of the best players in the league. Why would he take a vet minimum to go play in Phoenix? Like with the coach that he had, with Budenholzer, like why would he go and do that? But then to say and throw out those other teams, like maybe the Raptors could take him, Masai loves him, maybe Nico Harrison and the Mavericks will take him. Nico's like an uncle to him. I'm just like, what? Like, what does that have to do with anything? And then throw out the Timberwolves and say, well, they don't have an owner. So it's like you're throwing like all these things out here and then even yesterday with Bob Meyer saying like, yeah, Rich is telling teams like not take him or he's going to like Australia. It's just like we already know was like the worst kept secret in like the entire draft. Like they were going to take him at 55 and end all be all. Do I wish, was it so out there? Yeah, because I think he could have, me as thinking about Bronny as the prospect, could he have benefited, working out for more teams outside of just the Lakers and Suns? Yeah, I think it could have definitely helped him just to continue to match up with different groups because we know on these workouts, you're always not with the same group of prospects every time. So I think it could have benefited him, there. I don't like how he positioned the whole thing of like basically on him on a guaranteed and out on a 2-way when I think he could be better suited, getting some G League reps this year because I just don't see him getting a ton of minutes with the Lakers. I mean, we saw last year the Lakers young players didn't get off the bench, right? Max Christie didn't, unless it was press the alarm, DEFCON 5 levels. We got to get somebody in the game. Like, I don't see Bronny getting ton of NBA minutes this season. So it's definitely strange because we kind of saw him do the same thing last year with Chris Livingston. Last year it was like nobody take him, and then Chris Livingston goes like last pick to the Bucks and doesn't really do anything. This year it is just played in the G League. So it was definitely strange, just given the fact that I think we all knew, right, as basketball fans, sports fans, we all kind of knew like the Lakers are going to take him. It's just a matter of when, right? We just knew 55 was the number. Like they weren't going to take him at 17. Now, if you took him at 17, that would have been the biggest shock in the draft. It's like, hold on, like 17 overall pick. So I think 55. I think the way he moved, it was kind of weird, but I don't think there's a lot to be more unpacked with that. But yeah, it's kind of strange.
Yeah. All right then. Well, look, man. As always, it's great to see you, Jovan.
Appreciate y'all as always.
Gotta get you on for a full show at one point, but I know you're a busy man. So, as always, thank you so much for standing in instead of Morgan. You'll definitely probably see more of Jovan because, like I said, Morgan and Trey, because Morgan is honeymoon vacationing out here for the next couple of weeks. So, there will be a revolving door. But we're always good to see you, my brother, man. Enjoy your weekend on the rest of your Friday night.
Hey, for sure. Appreciate y'all for having me.
No problem, man. See you. No problem. Yeah, Trey, you want to hit on these? Which one you want to go back to?
No, I'll go back to the draft. So yeah, I like the Sixers picks. We kind of talked off air about what we thought about Adam Bona, and what his role will be, both in the short term and the long term. I agree. It doesn't look good for B-Ball Paul, as far as what that means his role will be, whether it means, he's playing less center and more, power forward, or he's not on the team anymore. That's yet to be seen. But I think there was a lot of teams that were winners. One team that I saw the trade and I was kind of shocked was at 8, the Spurs taking Rob Dillingham and then trading him to the Timberwolves. So good on the Timberwolves, because I mean he was one of the better players in the draft, obviously going at 8. And that's, whether he'll, get a ton of minutes or not on the Timberwolves, who have a great supporting cast around their top 3 or 4 players. I don't know. That's yet to be seen. But Rob Dillingham was a great player at Kentucky, and to show some bias, I mean, we know how Kentucky players could turn out in the NBA. Tyrese Maxey, Anthony Davis, right, and tons of other players. We've also seen them.
Your favorite John Wall. Let's not forget him.
John Wall, right? So we'll see. He's a shorter, smaller guard, but I think that was a big win for the Timberwolves to give them some depth on their bench, from a scoring standpoint.
Yeah,
and he can shoot as well. So there's that. Losers, I don't know. I mean, I didn't see too many losers per se, but that was a winner to me. Was the Timberwolves.
Yeah, I mean, for me, right, I was very happy, and we'll get to it in a minute. I was very happy with the Sixers. That's obviously a winner. Y'all know that when Morgan's not here, it's always pro Sixers, but it gets even more pro Philly when she's not around. So I am of the mindset that obviously the Sixers won. We'll get you into more details into that in a minute. I think Jovan hit it on the head, right? They got what they needed, and I think that's what a lot of these contenders did, right? If I could just pick one, you brought them up, right? Minnesota, everybody knows, and Trey knows, outside of the Sixers, no one's been blowing Minnesota harder than me. And that's a wrong terminology, but no one's been on that Minnesota Timberwolves train, and I'm the conductor of that train, right, Trey? So like I've been one of the few people being like, yo, y'all gotta watch out for the Timberwolves, like. Trey hit.
I'm right there with you, man. I'm right there with you with the Timberwolves.
Dillingham, right? That's all they really needed, right? And he gets to grow behind Mike Conley. Same thing with Jared McCain getting to grow behind Tyrese Maxey, right? Like it's just perfect for him. Like they needed a younger version because obviously Mike Conley isn't getting any younger, right? So now they've got the Mike Conley replacement. Anthony Edwards has even more of a hustler next to him. Like it's just going to be mean, that backcourt. I mean, OKC getting those 3-and-D guys who can defend. Obviously, OKC is out here, Minnesota and Denver proofing their lineup. So I'm just of the mindset that they got Alex Caruso and they just went and got more in that Caruso mindset, right, with the players that they picked. So they're my winners too. I'm trying to think. Utah, we're not going to get into that Kyle Flipakowski story, but I know I said Trey down a rabbit hole last night, and we both went down the investigative reporting rabbit hole with that. For those of you that don't know what I'm talking about, you're offline. Good for you. So a lot of people are kind of wondering why Kyle Filipkowski went. Like, if you were a Duke fan, I am not, obviously, but if you were a Duke fan, you probably thought that you would have top two picks with McCain and Filipkowski, but that didn't work out. And for those of you that want to know why, it's kind of weird. So I'm kind of going to give you all this. It's a lot of hearsay, although Trey and I haven't been able to confirm some details of the story. But it is all hearsay, and I'm not trying to get sued. So, but so what happened is, like, Kyle Filipkowski, 22 years old. I'm sorry, 20
years old.
But apparently in the interviews, which none of us were in, I have no sources on this, but based on what everybody is saying in the broadcast and was going around sports media and non-sports media circles so big that Trey went down, like I said, a big rabbit hole yesterday when I told him about it. So Kyle Filipkowski is currently dating a woman who is 28 years old. And the whole thing about this, and if it wasn't for his brother and mother, we would not know about this. So his brother came out because people thought it was kind of weird that this dude who seems like such a nice guy doesn't have any Aaron Rodgers like level jerkness to him. Why they didn't see his family, all they saw was the girl. Like, I don't want to call her the girl, but his girl, right? And
His fiance.
so his fiance, his girl, like, and everybody was kind of weirded out by that. And y'all know, because Morgan and I have talked about it extensively, that the NBA has some of the best investigators, former FBI people, former CIA people. And so what it turns out is that in the interviews, when they asked him about it, he couldn't really give a straight answer to these NBA execs about, why his parents were nowhere to be found in college and in the NBA. His brother came out on Instagram and I think on Twitter, came out and said like the reason why he is estranged is because, and I really don't like using this term because this is such a buzzword on the political side, like basically that his fiance currently grooms him into becoming a Mormon, and just cutting off his entire family, right? And his mother said something similar, that if y'all looked up like Mormon brainwashing, you can connect some dots, and they said that Duke knew about it, his agent knew about it, obviously Kyle knows about it, and so those that don't know, because it is on his Instagram, when we looked it up last night, that she did go to prom with him. His mother said when she was like 24, 26, and Kyle was maybe 17, 18. And I know some of y'all just hearing me say that are probably cringing right now. But again, let me just say, even though Trey and I were able to connect some dots, this is totally hearsay. Like, he is 20, she is 28, so you can connect some dots there. But we're not getting into it. But that is why Kyle Filipkowski, for lack of a better term, fell in the draft to the second round. And ironically enough, just because we're talking about Mormons, who did he get drafted by? The Utah Jazz. And so some of y'all might think, "Whoa, look at that!" So, but even saying that, right? Utah had a good draft outside of that, right? Like Utah had a great draft. They got Jalen Williams, his brother Cody. They got another 3-and-D guy. Like, it was a great draft for Utah, and they got their big man of the future next to Jared Kessler. All of that negativity to the side, because I told Trey before off air, this is all we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about it until there gets more stuff, because I don't want to kill his fiance, Miss Hutchinson, too much, because all of this is hearsay. Even though she's 28, he's 20. I'll leave it at that, because Trey knows I'll get into some things that might get me into trouble. So I'll leave it at that. I will leave it at that. But that's my winner. And I think Kyle Filipkowski wound up in a really good situation outside of all the Mormon stuff and all the off the court stuff, because he gets to learn from Jared Kessler. And Utah's just basically becoming a big man factory. So I think that he will learn a lot from them. So those are my winners right there. Utah, OKC, the Sixers. I didn't think I got to give the devil their due. The Knicks, Tyler Kolik, like all the moves that they made. Losers. I mean, the only reason I say this team is a loser is just because no one expected them to take this dude this high. The Grizzlies, and it's just because even though they met the need, I just think this is a classic case of overreach. Like, somebody fell too much in love with Zach Edey. And I just think that was too high to take him as a top 10 pick. But hey, you go with the best players available. I think there are people a little bit better than him that were available. Like, you had Eves Missy that you could have taken right there. But the Grizzlies went and got their guy. And so I hope you Memphis Grizzlies fans like seeing Ja Morant to Zach Edey lobs. So, because I just think that I don't want to be disrespectful to Zach Edey. He's a 2-time player of the year. On the Big Ten. He's a great player. He can at least get you a rebound, but it's kind of reminding me of Taco Fall, but like a little bit of a better version. But I hope Zach Edey can beat those allegations. Another loser, I'm only saying this just because I don't like the fact that they had 3 big men, because when you have 3 big men, that means you have no big men. Portland Trailblazers. Just because, why? Why did you need Donovan Clingan? Like, you didn't need Donovan Clingan. You got DeAndre Ayton. You got Robert Williams. And my biggest question there is, who are you trading? Probably Robert Williams, because he gives you nothing. And at least DeAndre Ayton can make a shot, and Clingan can at least be in the paint. And you might get those the big men lobs that all of y'all are going to love. I mean, Portland's going to be a great 2K team. For those of you that play 2K online, it's going to be a great 2K team. But those are my winners and losers. Trey, I don't know if you want to. I don't want to get you in trouble either. So we'll just move on for that whole Filipkowski thing. We'll go back to Rich Paul, then we'll go back up to the football just to stay in order. So do you think Rich Paul has too much power, and do you have a problem with him basically engineering the pick for the Lakers to take Bronny James, some black nepotism there? What do you think?
Yes and no, right? I think some of the kind of weird interview stuff that Jovan was talking about earlier, as far as some of the things he was saying that just didn't really make any sense, I think that was very strategic. I mean, Rich Paul is a smart guy. One of the, he is, Rich Paul is a very rich and wealthy man, right? He knows what he's been doing. LeBron is not his only client, right?
Got one here in Philly that's about to make a lot of money.
Yeah. So, I think a lot of that was strategic. Do I think he has too much power in terms of influencing Bronny getting picked? Perhaps. But if anything, I think LeBron was in that room too, and pushing that conversation as well, right? And because it's his son, right? Why wouldn't he be? LeBron has been vocal about, people have asked him about what he wants Bronny to do as far as, staying another year in college or going to the NBA. And he's always said, hey, look, if he wants to go to the NBA and that's his, cool. But if he wants to go back to college, that's his decision, right? I'm not going to force him into it. But he's also mentioned, obviously, that he wants to play with Bronny. So as far as, as you the kind of mentioned, the idea of the black nepotism that's kind of going on here, I think it's one of those things where, first of all, and shoot me if you want to, Bronny is not. Bronny is going to be a good player in the NBA, but I don't think he's going to be a good player right away. As Jovan mentioned, he's not going to get any minutes this year. It's going to be mostly bench minutes. I honestly wouldn't even be surprised if it ends up being a two-way contract where he gets some G League time and kind of goes back and forth, gets some, garbage time minutes late in games with the Lakers. But so there's that as well, right? It's not like, this was, he's a lottery pick. This is a late second round pick. So 5 picks away from the end of the draft. I don't really have an issue with it. I think it's awesome that LeBron can play with his son. I think you've seen this. I guess the biggest example we saw of this was back in, I guess this is the 90s, I want to say, with Lord have mercy, the baseball players. Ken Griffey
Jr. and Ken Griffey Sr.
Right. Which honestly, I think that's awesome. I mean, there's if you remember this, I didn't see it happen, but you might be aware of the story of when there was a fly ball and Ken Griffey Jr. and Ken Griffey Sr. were in the same area in the outfield, and Ken Griffey Jr. kind of came and stole the.
I heard about
stole the fly ball, and his dad got mad at him and actually took it. He said, "Give me your keys," and he grounded him. So I think there's going to be a little bit of that with Bronny. But as far as Rich Paul having too much power, not necessarily, no. Because, I mean, at the end of the day, Rich Paul is just being a little bit more vocal about it. Would I like to for it to have been a little bit more behind the scenes? Yes. But Rich Paul is not the only one who's influencing. Right. And he's obviously not the only agent who's influencing, this player's cousin or this player's brother. Like, y'all should, hey, he's over here, he's going to be available type of thing. So,
yeah, I think we should say that, like, obviously you only see this more. We haven't really seen this outside of Milwaukee with Giannis Antetokounmpo. I mean, we all know that the whole reason, like, his brothers get a spot is because, he's the superstar of superstars, obviously, in the NBA. There's some outside superstar influence, right? Like, if you're lead superstar, you're going to have some outsized influence.
Correct.
But in this case, like this is a rare point of disagreement because like I say yes and no as well, but in reverse, right? I think it's great that, Bronny, as black people, we say all the time, if you got it, flaunt it, right? That's a Beyonce line. She's talking about other stuff. But in this case, right, like, I say all the time, if you got that power, why not use it, right? So,
Yeah.
like, we see it all the time for other people of other hues that the boss's son or whatever. You see it in football with the owners all the time. Like, does, famously with Belichick, did his son really deserve to be the special teams coach in New England? Like, did he? No, but that's what happens, right? You see it in football all the time. Like, to make it a little personal, right? Like the Eagles, Jeffrey Lurie, like he's got a son that's like rising up in the ranks. Would he really be rising up in the ranks if his dad was not the owner of the Eagles, right?
The Cowboys, like, Jerry Jones and his kids.
Yeah, Jerry Jones and his kids. Like you see it all the time in football. It's not really a basketball thing, right? It's sometimes obvious. You see people's brothers taking spots and never getting into games. Like we talked about the Williams brothers, right? Jalen Williams is at OKC. Cody Williams is, in Utah. Like you don't really see this too much, right? Most of the time, people just let it play out. The Thompson twins came up, right? Asar is playing in another city. His brother's playing in Detroit. Like you really don't see it that much, but I have no problem with Rich Paul flexing. I do think he has a little bit too much power, just because I don't really like the optics of Bob Myers, and this is just optics with me saying on ESPN, "Hey, Rich Paul is telling people like." I'm like, okay, this happened with Eli Manning, and that's how the Mannings kind of engineered New York instead of San Diego, right? Like this happens in football all the time, not really in basketball. I think you should have let it play out. Like if he winds up in LA, great. I don't think you necessarily need to engineer that to happen, because to me, if the Lakers really wanted him, they got some second round picks. They should have just traded up, right? Like it's not like they have a couple of valuable role players. Like they could have traded up. You didn't really necessarily need to engineer it. So that's really my problem with it. But yeah, like Rich Paul is a powerful agent, and that's what happens when you are a powerful agent. You're married to Adele. You've got a lot going on. Rich Paul has a lot going on, so good for him. But I just don't like the optics of being so vocal that winds up on ESPN, and we all gotta talk about it, and they all act like. Those of you that didn't see it, everybody act like nobody was shocked when Bob Myers brought it up on the broadcast. So it's kind of like one of those things as far as media members that we know, but y'all don't know. And when it comes out, you just got to act shocked, even though you knew it already. So, that's kind of one of those deals. But, Rich Paul, like I said, if you got it, flaunt it, right? So we'll see what it looks like. I agree with Trey and Jovan. I don't expect Bronny to see any good minutes in LA, just because like they're very top heavy. He'll probably end up in El Segundo playing for their G League team, and that's good for him. Like to be in the area, he just had a heart thing. The big question is obviously like if he didn't have that heart problem, like would he have gone higher in the draft? Probably. Would he have probably been a first round pick? Would the Lakers have had to really would Rich Paul have had to really work to make the Lakers happen then? But you don't have to worry about that. And we obviously, I'm not using his heart thing as a negative. It's a good question, right? Like, had that heart thing not happened, would he have been with his teammate Isaiah Collier in the first round, right? So he might not have wound up in LA anyway, but it's good for him. It's a good thing. He can only grow from being around a vet team and learning from. We don't know if D'Angelo Russell will stay, but learning from D'Lo, learning from Austin Reeves. So I mean, it's a good situation for him, and a very safe situation. And so we're going to move right on back to football, and then we'll get back to the Sixers. I did promise y'all we would talk about the Sixers draft, so we will. But yeah, so the city of Charlotte, once again, this is right up Trey's alley, as he said. The city of Charlotte agrees to a proposal for the Carolina Panthers stadium expansion, and Jacksonville agrees to help the Jags get a new stadium. I'll start here because Trey's about to get really inside baseball, accounting-wise, with this probably. So, I am of the mindset, as you all know who watch this show, I am of the mindset that public money should not be going to help these. And I'm really heading into the next question. Public money shouldn't be going to help these billionaire owners build their new $1 billion babies. I don't care that obviously I know Trey's probably going to make the economic argument that you get a Final Four. You get what's happening in Indianapolis right now, where they just turned the entire football field into a big behind swimming pool, so Caleb Dressel and Katie Ledecky can try out for the swim team, like, you know, for the Olympics and stuff. You get all that. I mean, you know, you get all that, but like you get Final Fours and stuff like that. But you know, I just cannot. I'm happy for the Panthers. That they get that. Obviously, I feel sort of sorry for Jacksonville because they kind of caved here, because we all know, for those of you that don't know, right, the essential thing here was the Khan family was basically saying, give us a new stadium or we're going to London. That's what it was. Like, you know, that's where you see what happened with Oakland and the Athletics. You've seen what happened with Oakland and the Raiders. We'll dip to London. That's basically what the threat was. So they kind of had Jacksonville by the balls. And I'm kind of upset that Jacksonville's mayor and the city council bowed down to this. Like, you know, but, you know, good for them. Good for Jacksonville keeping its economic bastion there, because there's nothing really to go to Jacksonville for other than beaches. I mean, I know Trey goes to Florida a lot. I don't know if he goes to Jacksonville a lot. But, you know, I only thing I know about Jacksonville is the beaches and the Jaguars. So, you know, good for them. They kept their main economic baby. And I'm gonna let Trey let him talk about the finance of all this, and he's gonna tell me why I'm wrong. So go ahead.
No, so I actually agree with you with the whole public, to a certain extent, with the public money going to fund stadiums. I think it's a tricky situation because obviously there's a benefit for the city, right? It brings revenue, right? Like there's what a sports team does to a city essentially is all those, you know, let's say you have a Super Bowl in Charlotte, for example. I don't think that'll happen anytime soon, but you have this, let's say you have the Super Bowl in Charlotte, right? So you have the stadium, obviously, but think about all the businesses around. You got restaurants that are going to gain revenue. There's parking revenue from the city and private parking revenue. There's hotels. There's all this revenue that directly affects the city when you have a major sports team in your city or multiple major sports teams in your city. The Sixers are dealing with that right now with the potential of moving the stadium from South Philly over to
Center City.
over to Center City and by City Hall. So, yes and no. Should public money go to fund stadiums for the sports teams? And as far as Charlotte and Jacksonville, Charlotte and Jacksonville are not major cities, right? When you think about what are the major cities in the U.S. So if I'm the owner of the Panthers, if I'm the owner of the Jags, if I'm a city official in Charlotte, if I'm a city official in Jacksonville, I think from that perspective, I'm like, well, we need to do whatever we can to maximize this giant facility that we have, you know, in our, you know, wherever in the city. If that means expanding the stadium and creating more of an opportunity for it to be an event facility as well as to be used for that particular sports team, I'm for it, right? Because the other economic side to it is that not only if you expand your stadium, right, from like, okay, we have more seating, it also opens up the opportunity for it to be just a general event venue, right? So I'm here in Atlanta, you know, in Philly and most other cities, when that team is not using that arena, right, it becomes a concert venue, or a venue for other types of events, right? In Atlanta, the Falcons weren't using the stadium, so Kanye hosted a concert 2 days in a row, right? So, or I don't think it wasn't 2 days in a row, but
you would know better than me.
I did not go, but I have talked to people who worked that concert and said it was had people. I know people who were cam ops at the concert, and it was very interesting experience. They got paid very, very well, but it was a very interesting experience nonetheless. As far as Charlotte, ironically, I was just reading an article about it on LinkedIn actually. Some former colleagues of mine actually own the parking garage next to the stadium. So they're going to be involved in that, and they're making some money off of this expansion as well. So from that kind of revenue economic standpoint, it's good for the city. It's good for the team, but okay, should public funds be going to this, right? And if public funds are, how does it benefit the citizens directly, right? And I'm not talking about businesses, right? I'm talking about individuals. How does it affect individuals? And could the city be spending the money better elsewhere, right? And I think that depends, right? Like if you got a city where, and I'll end with this: if you got a city where your city or local government is not spending their public funds, your public tax dollars very well to, make sure our parks look good and make sure the roads are nice, and we need to add this bridge or we need to do this and that, then no. If you had a city who's using their public funds well, and you've got a well-oiled, city as far as like roads and all that type of stuff, then I'm okay with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, y'all know, we're going to see the next example of this in Buffalo. We know there's a big fight there over the Bills getting a new stadium, maybe a dome. I think it's ridiculous. You're in Buffalo. That's the whole point. Playoffs in Buffalo is people dealing with the snow and stuff. But,
Right.
Again, it's that economic bastion because other than the Bills and the Sabres, there's nothing really to go to Buffalo for. No disrespect to the great citizens of Buffalo, New York. There's nothing to go up there for.
Right.
Unless you want to cross the bridge and see Canada. There's nothing to go up there for. But, we'll see what happens with the Buffalo deal. As far as to answer the question, no. I know that some public money has gone to fund Lincoln Financial Field and Citizens Bank Park here in Philadelphia, and that money, the extra money goes to fund different school stuff for the schools here and things like that. But if your local city government isn't as strong as Philly's, you kind of don't see the point of that. You might see, I don't know. I've never been to Jacksonville or Carolina. I don't know if the roads are great in front of the Panther Stadium and horrible everywhere else. I assume it's probably the case, right? But I don't think public money should be going. I think these billionaire owners make billions of dollars off of bringing these people to football games, and they need to fork over the money themselves because they make it back within the first 3 or 4 games of the season. So I think that public money should be going there. I think that billionaires should pay for their own stadium, as what is about to happen with the Sixers, that all the money is private. I think they're going to do some kind of contractual finagling to turn the land over to the city. And so the city will own the land that the stadium's on, which I guess will be valuable. Again, Trey's the accountant over here, so I'll let him tell you about those figures when that happens. But that's just what it is, right? Obviously Philly has gotten to host WrestleManias, different things, different big events, right, because of the stadium. So I do want more cities to have that happen for them. But at the same time, it's just do people really want to go to Buffalo? Do people really want to go to Jacksonville? Maybe more Jacksonville and Charlotte than Buffalo. But so yeah, will more cities start investing in helping football teams' stadiums expand so they can get an economic benefit? Obviously, right, we're talking about Philly, right? The World Cup will be here. They'll be playing in Lincoln Financial Field. So yeah, I think here's what I'll say. I think billionaires of these things should pay already, and that should be their economic benefit, right? It's an economic benefit because FIFA isn't just paying the city. They're paying Jeffrey Lurie to be there, right, at the World Cup. He's getting a lot of money come 2 years from now to host that event, the World Cup there. There's been numerous other soccer games at Lincoln Financial Field, right? Over the last few years, the U.S. national women's team have hosted soccer games there. There was a Messi game there just this past summer. So there's definitely a lot of money, and I'm sure that soon the Eagles will be saying they want a new stadium and they'll want to knock down the link. I know a lot of Eagles fans don't want to hear that, but that's probably what will end up happening very, very soon. So you can host more events, right? So, like, there's a lot going on there, and obviously it does help. Like I said, the most recent example, Lucas Oil Stadium where the Colts play is a big swimming pool right now, so Katie Ledecky and them can try out for the Olympics. Eagles football stadium and the Giants football stadium and a lot of stadiums here on the East Coast 2 years from now will be turned into soccer fields. So, like, there is some economic benefits. Obviously, like Trey said, they've hosted Beyonce concerts at all these stadiums that I'm talking about, Jay-Z concerts, rock concerts, you name it. It's probably been hosted either at a football stadium or a basketball and hockey stadium. So there is some benefits there, but I just don't know if the benefit, you get billions of dollars, but a lot of this money, obviously, as we saw, we just talked about North Carolina, right? Like, a lot of this is dependent on, hopefully you don't have a wackadoo governor that's going to screw up your money, right? So, like, you have a lot going on there. But yeah, I think cities are right to try and invest, but I don't think the investment should be public money that should be going to schools, to roads, to infrastructure, to transportation systems, to other things in major cities. Obviously, Jacksonville, Charlotte, they don't really have to worry about public trans outside of buses. But we're talking about like Philly, New York, Boston, like, there should Atlanta, right? Like, infrastructure should be going. Y'all don't have a subway, right, in Atlanta, correct?
We have something called MARTA. Downtown where the stadium is, it's worth it. You're talking about the Braves though. There's actually no public transportation. Well, there's because it's a different county, but there is a way to get up to the Braves stadium. But that is, you're right. That is a consideration that cities have to make. It's like, okay, well, public transportation, is that a thing?
Right. So yeah, so moving right along. Speaking of the Olympics, the women's soccer roster came out, and Alex Morgan was snubbed. Those of you that like Alex Morgan, she's like the last old guard. You kind of saw by Paul's there. Trey knows that I love nothing more than watching Alex Morgan play soccer. So I was shocked. But young roster, new coach, old guards retiring outside of Alex Morgan and a couple of other players. So I feel kind of sorry for Alex Morgan because this is probably going to be like her, if not her last, her next to last Olympics, with it being in LA, which I think is where she's from. So I'm very shocked. Hopefully the women's team can win gold again after having their streak broken in Tokyo. We will see. But I mean, there's some, you got Trinity Rodman, you got a bunch of really good soccer players, but I just think that they could have found a way to get Alex Morgan in there. And I will let Trey go while I look this up, while I share the roster so everybody knows.
Yeah, I mean,
who's on it.
To be truthful, and I think we're on the same page. But as far as how much we watch soccer, but when it comes to the women's national team, that's like, you talk to any soccer fan, like, obviously the national team of any country is like a big deal. But you talk about the dynamic between here in the U.S. between the men's national team and the women's national team. Alex Morgan is like, is a big deal. So see that she's not on the national team after I think she's been on the team, what, I don't know,
the last couple, like at least the last 4 Olympics.
Right. She's been on like 4 or 5 Olympic teams at this point. She's tweeted about it, how disappointed she was 2 days ago. But I wouldn't really call it a snub per se. I think it's just one of those things where, and as Kylan looks up the roster, it's one of those things where, like, it's a national team, and you would hope that the best players get on the team from that particular country. It's just not always the case, right? To make a comparison to another women's sport with the W, you had the same situation with Caitlin Clark, right? And people were up in arms about that. Obviously, different caliber of player. Caitlin Clark is a rookie who is playing well, but also is a very hyped up player. Whereas Alex Morgan is a veteran player who is 34, 35 years old, very beloved player. So I'm not necessarily mad at it. It seems like she's upset about it, but like she's she's taking it to the chest, and she's going to keep moving forward. And as Kylan mentioned, I think it would have been nice for her to have been on the team, given that this very well could be her last year playing professionally. But at the end of the day, it is what it is,
Yeah. I mean, if you look at this roster, obviously you got phenoms like Tranny Rodman. Dennis, for those of you that don't know, that is Dennis Rodman's daughter. If you're wondering, hey, is she related to Dennis? Yes, this is his daughter. Sophia Smith. You've got a couple of vets here: Crystal Dunn, Alyssa Nair. You've got a couple of people who have been on the roster before.
One of her teammates as well at midfield. Or not rather at midfield, but at forward, Jaden Shaw as well.
Yeah, Rose Lavelle. There's a couple of like Olympians who are on the previous teams here. Obviously, the vets on this team, like I said, Crystal Dunn, Rose Lavelle. I'm just looking up people who were on this team before. Alyssa Nair. So people who were probably, Crystal Dunn probably has a few more Olympics left in her. But yeah, this is a rather young team, and unfortunately for Alex, like she would have been a midfielder or a forward. So it seems like they're kind of good, especially with the young cats of Trinity and Sophia on here. So it's unfortunate. It's just that, like in soccer, obviously there's been really, really a youth rebellion in U.S. soccer with these kids coming out. Like Sophia is like 17, 18 playing soccer. Not Sophia. I'm sorry. Trinity is like 18, 19 playing soccer. Sophia, same thing, 18, 19. Like, unfortunately, I think Alex was done in obviously by a bad combination. Not really a bad combination, but a bad combination of a new coach and a youth revolution as far as U.S. soccer. But I think that I hope that she'll be able to make it next year if she decides to stay, if she holds on for another couple of years for the LA Olympics. We'll see. But I do love Alex Morgan, and I hope she bounces back from this and uses it as motivation to make it to the next Olympics and the future World Cup that's coming up. But it's very unfortunate, and hopefully these women can win the gold medal. And I'm glad that she's taking the high road instead of being bitter like a lot of people would be and being all anti-patriotic about it and hoping that they lose. So I'm very happy that she's taking the high road in this case. So yeah. So we'll move right along to what we all were looking at last night. The Las Vegas Aces blast the Chicago Sky. I mean, look, guys, like this is one of those games, right? Asia Wilson versus Angel Reese. Like, you kind of tuned in for this matchup, and it did not disappoint, man. Angel got her double again. Obviously, the Aces got the more important thing to win. But this is what happens when you face the all-star team that is the Las Vegas Aces, especially now that they got Chelsea Gray back. You got Jackie Young. You've got Kelsey Plum. And all Chicago really has is, Camilla and Angel, and then role players after that. No disrespect to them, but that's what they are. I was not shocked that that the Aces blasted them. I'm glad that Angel Reese was able to keep her double streak alive. It's at 9 now. It's historic. She's doing a lot of great things. And Asia Wilson, what more can we say? Signature shoe, dropped a logo with a week for her, and keeping her 20 plus and at least 10 rebound streak alive. Like, what can you say, man? The Aces look good, and they look even better with Chelsea Gray.
Yeah, I mean, I'll kind of bleed into the next question as well. I mean, I unfortunately I didn't get a chance to watch the game. Speaking of issues with being out of market, unfortunately I wasn't able to watch the game. But I did see highlights of the game, and truthfully, I mean, this is I don't know for certain, but I think Asia is probably the best player in the league, right?
I agree with that.
And she, if you what was also announced, I think it was early last week, or might have been earlier this week, was the All-Star votes.
She's
and I
number
think
one.
she was right, and Caitlin was number 2, and I think there's some. I don't think she has any beef with Angel Reese, But I think there as a former athlete who played basketball in high school, there's a level of motivation when somebody else, one of your colleagues, essentially gets recognized for something. And you're like, oh, I'm the best, so let me go ball out against these young bulls, right?
Right.
So I think that there was a little bit of there, but obviously, and the other thing too is, right, the Chicago Sky are not that good of a team right now, right? The Aces are one of the best teams in the league. They got arguably the best player in the league. And I mean, that's really all that. I mean, and the Aces are also a stacked team, like you mentioned, Jackie Young, Aja Wilson, Kaya Stokes, Kelsey Plum, Chelsea Gray. Like they've got a really, really good team. And then you got somebody, even you got Kate Martin, right? Caitlin Clark's former teammate.
Iowa's second favorite player.
right. So, whereas you look at the Sky's team, and it's not to say that they have bad players, they're just not the better team. You got Angel Reese, Marina Mabry, Kennedy Carter, and Camilla, and that's pretty much it, right? After that, so yeah. I'm not shocked by the win. It makes sense because the Aces are the better team. And is this a matchup of the future? Potentially, yeah. Because the thing about I think the cool thing about this, right, is Asia's only 27. Angel Reese is a rookie, right?
Yeah, she's like 21, 22.
Yeah, 21, 22. So yeah, this is old and new guard, like you said, right? And so you get an opportunity to see somebody who's been in the league for 4 or 5 years already, and has proven herself to be one of the best players in the game, and arguably the best, and will probably go down, if she continues on this streak, as one of the best the W has ever seen. So I am, and I have also talked about this off air as well, as I'm excited about the prospects not only of these two and their matchup, but just in general the prospect of what the WNBA, of the growth of the WNBA, and the new eyes, old eyes who maybe stopped watching it for a little bit and came back. So it's exciting to see that women's pro basketball is kind of coming back to center stage.
Yeah, man, I agree totally.
Lord have mercy, I just splashed my water on myself.
No, man. The power of Jesus compels you. Minnesota Lynx beat the New York Liberty and are winning the Commissioner's Cup. Reaction to this, excuse me. Again, no, I'll let you go first.
So ironically, I didn't. This is just my lack of previously watching the WNBA. But I wasn't aware that there was an in-season tournament the same way that the NBA has added. So when I was looking at I was looking through the schedule and looking at some of the games, I was like, oh, okay, that's interesting. But again, I think this is a situation where you got two teams that are really good, right? And I wish I had I got it right here, the box score. But you got two really good teams, right? With two really good with some really good players. In the Liberty, you got, you might say a super team with Sabrina Ionescu and Brianna Stewart and that whole crew, and John Cole Jones as well.
You're not wrong. It's very much a super team.
Yeah. So I mean, again, unfortunately, I wasn't able to watch the game, but looking at highlights, it looked like it was a good contest. Came down to the wire. It was only a 5-point game, so again, like I said before, it's dope to see stuff like this, or rather, I should say, the W kind of creeping back into mainstream media. Who's responsible for that? We won't argue about that, right? But I'm excited for it. So yeah.
Yeah, and I agree with you, man. I think this was good. Like last week, I was again riding that train. Like Trey knows, I've been on both of these Minnesota teams, man. Maya Moore, this is Maya Moore's franchise right here, the Minnesota Lynx, and Lindsay Whalens, and Nafisa Collier. She's just that girl, man. Like that's what it is, man. The as long as the Lynx will go as far as Nafisa Collier will take. will take them. And since Morgan's not here, I got to be the one to sing the praises of some UConn players who I watched in college. So I'm old, y'all. So Nafisa Collier, man, what a player. Leading her team like this. Alyssa Pilley as well, the Utah rookie and Samoan sensation. The Lynx are a good team. They're going to surprise a lot of people as they surprise the New York Liberty. Like they have that combination of size with Nafisa, and they have a center that's also really good. I think she's from Australia. Like it's not just Nafisa. Like it is really good. Like they have a great combination, just like the Timberwolves of offense and defense, and being able to hit you where it hurts with the threes and running you off the court and everything, as they did with the Liberty, kind of tired them out because the Liberty, besides Sabrina, are an older team, right? Like Stewie is like in her late 20s, early 30s, but I mean, she's been playing basketball her entire life, and there's tread on them tires. Same with John Clell Jones. Like you can run the New York Liberty out of the building as the Minnesota Lynx did. So, congrats to the Minnesota Lynx winning the Commissioner's Cup, just confirming what I said last week and have been saying. Like the Lynx are coming. Don't be surprised when they make some noise in the playoffs. So, moving right along and finishing the segment. The top 4 WNBA teams right now. I'll start here. So, in no particular order, the Connecticut Suns. I mean, come on, best record in the WNBA. I mean, what more can I say? I said it last week. Alyssa Smith, like the fact that they can shoot you out the building. They play defense. They've been mad since they lost to the Liberty. Like, I think that was their last loss a couple of weeks ago. Like, 14, 15-2. Like, what more can you say about the Connecticut Sun? They're really good. They're coming. The New York Liberty, obviously, even though they fell to the Minnesota Lynx, like Trey said, when you have Jonquel Jones, Sabrina Ionescu, and Stewie, like, this is a team that just went to the finals, narrowly lost to the Las Vegas Aces, and they still look really good and look like they're back. I've never seen Sabrina play more free. Now that, Caitlin Clark is there to take the pressure off of Sabrina. Now Sabrina doesn't have to worry about being the next great hope. They got Caitlin now, so they're on her. So, Sabrina doesn't have to worry about that now. Now she can focus on ball, and it seems to have helped her, right? Like, they'll go as far as those three will take them. Again, the Seattle Storm, they just whooped up on Caitlin Clark and them last night. Seattle Storm are coming. Skylar Diggins, Jewel Lloyd, the Gold Mamba, like, Nneka Ogwumike, like Seattle Storm. I know they just got devastated a couple of weeks ago against the Liberty, but they're coming, y'all. It's the Seattle Storm. Skylar Diggins is on a revenge tour. A Seattle Storm as well. And then just because they just beat a team that I just put at second, like Minnesota Lynx, baby. Like, come on, man. They're coming. I keep telling y'all, they're coming. I can't sing their praises more. Like, those are my 4 really good teams, top 4 teams right now.
Yeah, I think for me, I want to say the Liberty, the Sun, the Lynx, and actually the Aces. I do like the Storm, but I think if you go back and you kind of look at in particular the Aces, go look at some of their more recent games. They've had a tough schedule, right? Like within the last 2 weeks, they have played the Liberty, they played the Storm, they played the Sun, and they played the Sky, right? They unfortunately weren't able to beat the Liberty back. What was it, 2 weeks ago? They just beat the Sun. They beat the Storm the 2 nights before that, and then just put on a clinic basically against the Sky. Right? I think I give them the edge. Skylar Diggins is a great player, but Asia Wilson, right? Like what else is there to say? I think the top 3 are pretty obvious. It's the Liberty, Sun, Lynx, and you can put them in whatever order you want. But I'm going to throw the Aces in there at 4.
Okay. All right. So we'll see. Like we said, this changes every week. I mean, my top 3 isn't going to change, but that 4th team might change. I just said the Sun, the Liberty. Like I said, you can't really count out the Lynx. They just beat the Liberty, so it's not going to change. That 4th team might change. Holla at me next week. It might be the Mercury. Who knows? So teams get hot all the time. But speaking of that, we're talking about New York, so let's just go. The New York Knicks traded for Mikal Bridges, completing the Villanova Knicks, and did something that I didn't think was possible, re-signed OG Anunoby. So, Trey, I'll let you go because I know people are excited to hear what my reaction is to this.
Yeah. So for those who don't know, right? Colin and I are good friends. We've been friends for I don't know how many years.
Too long.
Although I live in Atlanta. And so often we talk about these topics off air. So we had a, I don't know, probably 45-minute conversation about this last night. We were talking about different topics for the podcast, for the show. And I don't know if we've disagreed just yet, but this is the first time we're going to disagree. So I like the trade, right? I didn't think they were going to be able to re-sign OG, but I think this team is going to work, right? I think the Knicks are going to be a problem. Obviously, chemistry is a thing, right? And they're going to have to work that out. But I think the nature of each of these players, these top players that you got Mikal Bridges, OG Anunoby, Jalen Brunson, and Julius Randle, right? And then they've got Lord have mercy, their center coming back from injury as well. So I think it works, right? Mitchell Robinson.
If they don't trade
because in my mind, none of these players are particularly ball dominant, right? To talk about another former Knicks player and somebody like Carmelo Anthony, he was a more ball dominant and often was more of a ball stopping player. Whereas I don't see Mikal Bridges, Jalen Brunson, Julius Randle is probably the biggest of, in terms of being a ball stopper. But their offense runs almost exclusively through Jaylen Brown. That's why his usage rates were so high. That's why his stats were so great. Jalen Brunson, yeah. So I think it works. I like the trade. Are they a title contender, to kind of sneak into the next question as well? I don't know that this necessarily makes them a title contender per se. They are a team to mess with. Can they beat the Celtics? I don't know. They're a problem for the Sixers, right? We struggled against them, healthy or not. So it's we shall see. It's a we shall see situation, but I do think that this makes the Knicks a better team, and it gives them a better chance at being a title contender.
All right. Here's my thing, right? Obviously, I don't think any of us thought when this week started that Mikal Bridges would be traded for 5 first-round picks. I think that's a classic overvalue. I know there's a bunch of I've never seen New York Knicks fans be so happy and overhype a player so much. And I love Mikal Bridges. Lord knows I do. I'm a Villanova
local guy.
I'm a Villanova Syracuse guy. I love all of these guys. I just hate the fact that they're all playing for the Knicks right now. I could stomach it if it was the Nets. But I can't stomach it with the Knicks because these Knicks fans are way too happy for a team that lost to an injured Indiana Pacers team. I really do think that this is great for the Knicks. I'm happy. I've said on this podcast before, when the Knicks are good, it's great for everybody. When they're bad, they're bad. When they're good, they're good. I fully expect them. They've definitely eclipsed the Bucks right now because the Bucks are about to fall apart when free agency starts. I don't think that they're better. This won't surprise anybody than the Celtics or the Sixers, just because I don't think there's only one ball. And 4 players that need to score, right? Now, Mikal Bridges, he's a catch-and-shoot guy. He'll be fine. He might go from 19.6 points a game to 17.6 because Jalen Brunson and Julius Randle need to both score at least 48 plus a game for them to win because, those are the 2 stars of that team. Everybody else is a bunch of role players in comparison. So, unless they trade Julius Randle, which they might do, and just then rely on Jalen Brunson, OG, and Mikal Bridges. And I'm just going to echo what Becky Hammond said that, I don't think that, we're going to see, but this is not Villanova, and they're not coached by Jay Wright. I don't think a Jalen Brunson-led team will win a ring, right? They might make a finals, but I don't think they'll win a ring. I don't think they're a title contender. I think that this is firmly puts them. And I'm one of those people. Trey will tell you, I was one of those people. Everybody's calling me a fool for saying the Nets. I was one of the few people in media saying the Nets would not work because it just would not work, right? Because there's not enough balls. I said James Harden would get mad when Kyrie Irving does and take those YOLO threes. When Kevin Durant is out here taking on the whole team and shooting the shot he really shouldn't have taken and he should have passed the ball. That's exactly what happened. James Harden left, Kevin Durant left, then Kyrie left. So here's what I'm saying, right? Here's what's going to happen. Like I told Trey, right? Everybody's good friends right now. It was all good when it was 2 20-minute quarters, right? It's not going to be all good when it's 4 quarters, 82 games, 12 minutes, playoffs, when Jalen Brunson is getting triple teamed, and instead of passing it to a wide open Mikal Bridges in the corner, he decides, oh, I can't see nothing. I'm just going to make these YOLO passes like he was in the playoffs that lost him game 7, and it winds up in Spike Lee's lap or John Stewart's lap, whoever's sitting in the celebrity row, it winds up in their lap, right? It's all good until then. It's all good until OG Anunoby is shutting OG Anunoby and Mikal Bridges are shutting down both wing players, and somehow, some way, the other team gets the ball and they're running it back, and because Tom Thibodeau has never seen a player that he won't run into the ground, is going the other way, and Tyrese Halliburton gets an easy layup or an easy oop to Miles Bridges because everybody's down there, and Mikal's yelling at Jalen, Jalen's yelling at Dante. Like it's a whole thing, and Tom Thibodeau's just sitting there looking stupid like he usually do, like he doesn't know how to coach. But I'm just telling you, this is what's gonna happen, right? It's all good, but here's the thing for the Knicks. Like you gotta pay Jalen, right? You gotta pay him now, I guess, instead of paying him $250 next paying him like he's Jamal Murray next year. In a year, and like in 6 months, you'll pay Mikal Bridges half of his super max. Then you'll pay him the full next year. You got to pay Julius Randle. It's just not going to work because math, right? And Trey knows I hate math, but it's not going to work because of math. So like money, everybody got to get their money. OG will be demanding a trade right now. I think he's the highest paid player until Jalen Brunson is about to get his extension. Like Julius Randle is looking around saying, these Villanova guys are nice, but they're not better than me, and I'm still going to be taking my YOLO threes and backing them down and expecting the ball. And if I don't get the ball, I'm going to be a problem. Like it's not going to work. It's going to implode. But hey, enjoy the ride, New York Knicks. You're going to have a good 2 to 3 years, and then it'll implode, and you'll look like the Brooklyn Nets.
No, I think we're both wrong and we're both right in some ways, right? I think we disagree on the sharing of the ball, but I do agree with you in that it's not going to come easy for them to figure out how the ball is going to be shared. I just think that they're going to be able to work it out, but we are in agreement though in terms of money in future years, right? Obviously, that's not going to be a thing. 2, 3, 4 years down the line, money is going to become an issue, and we've seen it before with multiple teams, including the Nets, right? Where you got 3, 4 superstars on one team, the money goes all to them, and then you got a bunch of bench players around them, and that's just not conducive to winning titles. So I agree with you on that.
Right. I didn't even mention the bench thing. I talked for like 15 minutes about they have no bench outside of Deuce McBride. So and Dante DiVincenzo. So that's not a bench. That's 2 people who can shoot sometimes. Right. That's 2 streaky shooters, and they just got rid of their best bench player, Bogdanovich, who's probably going to get bought out, and the Sixers should be calling that man and getting him on a vet minimum. I'm just there. I think that I kind of answered this. I think they're going to end up like the Nets, but I wouldn't be surprised in the way that, especially I think this season, and you'll probably see this upcoming season with everybody playing in the Olympics, but a couple of Knicks players, that the Knicks will probably be, to start the season, a top team in the East, but it won't end up like that. Boston's going to be kind of down with Kristaps Porzingis not playing till December probably. Like the Sixers, we'll see what the Sixers do. We're waiting on to see what the Sixers moves are going to be now that they've drafted some players and now have 6 players on the roster. So we'll see what goes on with that. Obviously, we all think the Bucks are about to implode just because Brook Lopez is probably leaving, Bobby Portis is leaving, Chris Middleton's probably leaving. So what is that going to look like with Dame and Giannis and plug-in players? Probably we'll see. So the East is going to be interesting in October, but until then, Team USA all the way. So for the Olympics, we talked about the draft, but we're going to get to this one. Did the Sixers have a good draft? And we know in the fandom and the circles that we are in, some people are not happy about specifically Jared McCain over Dalton Connect. And I think we all agree that it was a good pickup for Adam Bona. I know you and I agree on this. I love the Jared McCain pick, even though I wanted Dalton Connect. As Trey knows, nobody was singing in our group chats the Dalton Connect hype train more than me. And I thought they would take Dalton over Jared McCain because there was a miscommunication in media circles. Somebody, I think it was Jake Fisher or somebody misposted that the Heat were taking McCain instead of who they wound up taking. They wound up taking another player instead of Jared McCain, and so it worked out that it was Jared McCain, Dalton Connect, and Tristan Da Silva. And as Daryl Morey said, they went with the best player they had on the board, and I can't complain. Jared McCain, like Jovan said, 14, 15 points, like 41% from 3, like was a menace to Morgan's James Madison University team. Like dropped 35 points on 6 or 7 shooting them from threes. Had like 8 or 9 threes on JMU. Like this man is a shooter. He's a hustler. He's a dog. I talked about this below in the description box. Dogadelphia, go read that article. I lay it out for you guys that this man is going to be a problem. Like he's going to be what Landry Shamet was to the Sixers in 1 year on steroids. Like he is the DeAnthony Melton replacement. I think that learning under Tyrese Maxey, Tyrese Maxey, people are like he's undersized. I mean, he's the same height as Tyrese Maxey, who's a little bit taller than Jalen Brunson, who's also 6'2". Yeah, all of y'all were singing the praises, except for when Tyrese Maxey was burning him, of Jalen Brunson, who's a good defensive player for his size. And I just really didn't understand these Philadelphia sports fans and radios being like, well, what's a 2 undersized guard lineup going to do? And I'm like, didn't the Sixers just get cooked by the Knicks with 2 undersized guards? Like, come on, y'all. This is like the Knicks are, as I said to Trey on off air, like the Knicks are Celtics proof in their team. The Sixers are out here Knicks proof in their team, right? Like Jared McCain to lock up Josh Hart and Jalen Brunson, and probably OG Anunoby because he's a good foot. He was like Houston has like a bunch of guys who were way taller than him, and he was locking them up. So like Jared McCain is a good player. They got the best, like one of the top 3 players in this draft. And then they got Adem Bona, who's like, as they said, like the best athlete. He only, a la Joel Embiid, he only just picked up basketball. He was a soccer player, a really tall soccer player. He has a 7'4" wingspan. He was the Pac-12 player of the year in a league, by the way, with Isaiah Collier, right? Bronny James. Like the Pac-12 was loaded. Caleb Love. Like this man had to guard or stop or block all of these guys that y'all all like, all of these highlight reel players. So like I like that they got the 2 best players, and then they got a guy, I think Justin Edwards from Kentucky, Philly kid, great shooter, another mid-range assassin, a guy who can shoot your favorite shooter's favorite shooter. Like great draft for the Sixers. And the undrafted market was really good to them last year. This year they used their picks. And like Jovan and I said, I think that was the biggest surprise of the draft because I think all of us expected the 16th pick to go to NOLA so Brandon Ingram could come here. And that might still happen. It just might not be with Jared McCain and Adem Bona because, Trey knows. Like, I don't think I've ever seen like Daryl Morey like hype up a draft class before like he's hyping up these 2. So
yeah.
I'll let you go.
No, so I agree with you. I think the Sixers had a great draft, right? I like the Adem Bona pick. I like the Jared McCain pick. I as much as I think Jared McCain was going to be okay, having a smaller backcourt can be an issue sometimes. My question is, it was a good pick. The question is, if you're the Sixers organization, is it the best pick, right? I don't know. I think Jared McCann is going to be a good player in the NBA. Unfortunately, in the last decade, the Sixers have had a bad track record when it comes to drafting and keeping players. Tyrese Maxey is the most recent example of us keeping a good young player and developing a good young player. Obviously, there's Joel Embiid, but if you go back and you look at our draft, there's not many players who we've drafted and kept and have been impactful, strong, top tier players on our team in the last, Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey are the only two really that you think about that are still here and were drafted. Markelle Fultz is gone. Jahlil Okafor is gone, right?
Right. And some of those,
Landry Shamet, who you name dropped, is gone.
Right. And some of those were bad fits and like bad GM.
Right.
That was Brett Brown, and obviously Elton Brand was a really good GM, but that was when Brett Brown was running the show.
Correct.
Just to be clear, the Sixers fans who were mad and yelling that Daryl Morey traded Mikal Bridges, he wasn't here yet. That was Brett Brown. Brett Brown that drafted him, drafted Landry Shamet. Some of that was Colangelo. Daryl Morey's pick so far, as Trey pointed out, the only one that he's kept so far was Tyrese Maxey. And, I think we're getting an idea now that, Daryl Morey is entering his third or fourth year. To be fair to him, right? He drafted Tyrese Maxey, traded some picks, really, really wound up really good in the undrafted free market last year. Obviously, he traded the pick last year.
Yeah.
And traded the pick that wound up going and netting the Sixers DeAnthony Melton, right? So, he's had some good. DeAnthony Melton was a good player for the Sixers, right? He just had some back injuries and stuff and wound up being better than whatever that pick would have been. Obviously, like we said, Traquavion Smith, RC4, the undrafted market was really good to the Sixers last year. And so this year they used the two picks probably because, like he said, they really weren't in love. And it's kind of like what happened with the Eagles when Devontae Smith, right? It kind of fell perfectly, and they just were like, nah, we got the player that's at the top of our board, which is Jared McCain.
Right.
It worked out for them. And like I said, I think he's the best. He's the best player, going to be a top 3 player in this draft, and he's also just the best fit, right? He's going to be able to take advantage of those corner threes that Buddy Hield and them. Well, Buddy Hield made them in the game 6 to keep the Sixers' hopes alive.
Yeah.
But he's going to be the person making those shots, giving Buddy Hield, if they re-sign him, some room. I mean, this is going to be the bench unit, if you really think about it, is going to be sick if they keep Hield, if they keep Batum, if they keep Uber.
And to kind of further what I was saying, this is the buts, right? If they don't keep Buddy Hield, right, or they lose, let's say, a DeAnthony Melton,
which they probably will.
Then
McCain probably makes sure, sort of like Bona, that
correct
Melton and Reed.
So the question then is, all right, was Jared McCain actually the right pick from a standpoint of, okay, we need a shooter on the team? Because obviously Jared McCain is a good shooter, but at the same time, is he a stand still, catch and shoot type of shooter? No, he's more of an off the dribble. He can catch and shoot, but he's more of an off the dribble guy, hustle energy guy who's going to play defense, can knock down a 3. Whereas somebody like Dalton Knecht is more of a scorer, but he's also can be that. To reference, the Knicks, he can be that Dante DiVincenzo knockdown three-point shooter, and I think he's actually going to be more consistent.
Dante's as I said, Dante's like white J.R. Smith.
Dante is more streaky, for sure.
He's not that guy.
So no, I'm not mad at the pick. I think it's a very, very good pick. I think Jared McCain hopefully is going to be a long-time Sixer. Is going to be a good tandem with him and Tyrese Maxey. But Daryl Morey and the rest of the organization has some work to do to make sure that they can retain some of these other players that we brought in last offseason to fully maintain and round out the rest of the team from an offensive standpoint, to make sure we got shooters surrounding Joel Embiid. Because if you go back to reference another Laker, JJ Redick, who's now the coach of the Lakers, when we had him, I mean, that was, you think about that team that year, that was one of our, 2 or 3 opportunities to kind of go and do something with that team, and we didn't.
I feel
Unfortunately, but
how he would give you 20 points and then give up 50.
well, yeah. I'm not talking about defensively. I'm just talking about chemistry wise with Joel Embiid. That kind of dribble handoff, pick and roll that they had, it was nasty from an offensive standpoint. Like nobody could stop that, right? The question is, do we have that guy on the team? I don't know. Maybe with a full off season, Buddy Hield can be that guy. So we'll see.
Yeah, and speaking of, like, as we wind down this show, NBA free agency preview and predictions. I'll give you a prediction now. I said it last week, and I'll say it again. Like, I think Klay Thompson will leave the Warriors. I think he either winds up in Philly or in Orlando. I think I'm leaning more towards Philly just because, and this is the Paul George of it all. If Paul George comes to the Sixers, then I think Brandon Ingram and Klay Thompson both wind up somewhere else, probably split between Orlando and Indiana. I know some of y'all like, but Pascal Siakam is the power forward. I mean, like Trey, I sent Trey down the rabbit hole too. Like, Brandon Ingram is good, but he's had his best year as a PF, so he's probably more of a PF than a lot of y'all really think. Even though y'all look at him and say, how can he be
a small ball PF? But yeah.
Technically, that's what Kevin Durant is. Kevin Durant is not a small forward; he's a power forward. So, like, he just looks
and center too. Played center a lot.
He's very lanky, but like, in Texas, he was a PF. When he played with the Thunder, he was a PF. Like, that's what he is. He's not a small forward. He's only a small forward if you have a PF. But in Phoenix, he's a PF. Like, he's not. He's a PF. And the same thing here. Brandon Ingram is that guy. So yeah, I think it's the Paul. I think Klay Thompson ends up either in Philly or Orlando. Paul George will leave the Clippers and wind up with Philadelphia's current team or Philadelphia's old team, the Golden State Warriors. Shout out Amina Muhammad, because you and I both know she's somewhere hoping that her Golden State Warriors get the Paul George, even though she'll say publicly she doesn't want him. So I think that's the Klay Thompson of it all. I think that you'll see some role players. I think, I said that Donovan Mitchell will leave, but I don't know if there's a trade for him. Like, I don't know if LA, by getting Dalton Connect, has enough to get him. I think the Clippers might get him now because they need something. Like, if Russell's not going to be there, if Paul George, which it looks like highly likely that he won't be there, Kawhi's going to need somebody to pass him the ball. And I think James Harden ends up somewhere else. Heck, I think James Harden might end up back in Houston. I could see it because there's no one really talking about James Harden, and that's kind of shocking to me. Chris Paul, I really don't know. Chris Paul could end up in Boston. I think it's interesting now that Malcolm Brogdon is available, so I think the Sixers are looking at that as well. I think everything's
talk about Malcolm Brogdon, dog.
Yeah,
you've heard me
stay at the Wizards, bro. He's not gonna.
I don't know. I mean, my opinion on Malcolm Brogdon. I've loved Malcolm Brogdon since he came into the league, man. I'm very big on him. He kind of, I would say he fell off, but he kind of shifted his game a little bit from that. I think it was his second year in the league. He definitely he had a big jump from year 1 to year 2, but nonetheless, no, I'm in agreement with you. I think as far as CP3, I don't know if he'll end up in Boston. It's looking like he's not going to stay in
Golden State.
on the Warriors in Golden State. They did just extend, so whatever is going to happen is not happening today or tomorrow. But I do think here's my prediction as far as, and this is more specific to the Sixers. I don't think the Sixers are actually going to make as big of a move as people think they are, right? I think if anything, they go for we talked about this last night, a smaller level, like mid-tier free agent, like a KCP or a Klay Thompson, as opposed to trying to get a Paul George, because I I see the Sixers trying to build, as opposed to having multiple superstars. I see the Sixers, and it started, a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, that they're trying to build a stronger bench, because that's the biggest thing that has hurt the Sixers, is that we just didn't have a strong bench, and we didn't have enough shooting. And with the players we have now and a full off season, and maybe adding a Klay Thompson or a KCP, or maybe both of them, right, and adding Jared McCain, I see a scenario where they're not looking necessarily. They're gonna. It's Daryl Morey, right? He's gonna check the boxes and see if he can make a deal with Paul George. But if it's not to his liking, he's not gonna do the deal. The same way he didn't do the deal to get Lord have mercy,
James Harden.
No, to get Buddy and
Buddy Hield and all of them.
Buddy Hield and all of them from that whole deal that got leaked or whatever.
Yeah,
from Sacramento. So yeah, that's my take.
Yeah, I think the other one is Andre Drummond ends up back in Philly.
That makes sense.
I think, again, like I said, I think if Paul George doesn't end up in Philly, that Brandon Ingram does. I think that you can Brandon Ingram, KCP with the 2, and then you just need a small forward more than likely, or a power forward. Like, I think that you can do that, and that might be what saves Paul Reed. Maybe he ends up going to the starting 5 if they can't find like a power forward that works. He will definitely have to get better at shooting threes then. So, like, I don't know if that'll work. That might work in a 2K lineup, but I think that or like you said, I think that this is going to be some combination of Ingram, KCP, and Thompson. And maybe Paul George, if they can convince him, because it seems Joel Embiid has made no secret that he wants him in Philly. So, as we've seen, so we will see what happens. But I think he can be convinced, because Klay Thompson is a superstar. He hurt his leg. He's not the guy that he was. But with the wide open shots that Tyrese and Joel creates, he can be back to his old Splash Brother self. And he's
a vet. He's won championships, multiple championships, right?
Right.
The other thing with Klay too that I would like over, let's say, KCP, for example, is I don't know if you've heard. You probably just look it up, but there's a, I can't remember whose podcast it was, but it was somebody talking about how bad of a passer Paul George actually is, and how much they hate receiving passes from Paul George. And Klay is not really a passer either, but that we know that Warriors offense was a well-oiled machine, and was predicated around getting the ball to Klay and Steph, but both of them are good passers in their own right. So if I had to choose, I'd take somebody like Klay because of his veteran championship experience.
Go ahead, finish your thought.
And obviously, a healthy Klay, new environment, right? Open shots because of what Joel Embiid does, as far as pulling defenders into the paint. It leaves Klay with a bunch of open threes. So.
Yeah, and like I said, I feel like, they're going to get some combination. And like I said, Paul George, if he comes, will probably resign, opt in, and then force his way to wherever he wants to go. They don't really have to. They can do to Brandon Ingram, if they got him, what they did to Tyrese Maxey, make him wait a year. That way they can pay They're obviously going to pay Tyrese Maxey a 5-year, $200 and some million deal. Mm-hmm. But I think you could justify Tyrese Maxey, KCP, Thompson. I think there's a world where you can get all 3. Not if Paul George comes. If Paul George doesn't come, I think there's a world where you can get Klay Thompson, Brandon Ingram, and KCP. And obviously, because like we said, we know that, that Brandon Ingram is on the last year of his current Supermax. So obviously you're going to get the best version of Brandon Ingram. You'll get the best version and angry and disrespected Klay Thompson, who's mad that, the Warriors decided that they wanted to pay Draymond, instead of him. Like, you're going to, and obviously Jordan Poole too, before they paid him. So like, Poole's not even there anymore because, Draymond Green socked him out of that. out of that team to DC. Like, I think that you're going to get an angry Clay. I think KCP's good. He can be a 2. Like, it's like I told you off air. Like, I see a lineup of Tyrese Maxey, KCP, like I said, Klay Thompson at the small forward, because he can play guard or forward, and then the PF of Brandon Ingram. Like, I know you don't like that because you don't think that he could be able to bang with, it's not all these power forwards are stretch anyway, so he might be all right. He can get rebounds and stuff, and Joel Embiid's there to get rebounds anyway. So, and then you have Andre Drummond, a bench of Andre Drummond, Jared McCain, Buddy Hield, Kyle Lowry, Nicholas Batum. So it's a nasty lineup, and if and even if they did get Ingram and they don't get Klay Thompson, like Nicholas Batum at PF, Brandon Ingram at small forward, KCP, I think that's a lineup that can get you a ring, because I mean you'll have Nicholas Batum, you'll have Brandon Ingram, who we've seen go shot for shot with Jason Tatum, and you'll have KCP to shut down Jaylen Brown. And you really don't have to worry about anybody if you play the Knicks, but Jalen Brunson, just making sure you have a rebounder. So they have enough people who can be tough and get a rebound, which we know Clay can do. We know that Jared McCain, he was out rebounding people that were taller than him, right? So you have people that can get rebounds. I think, like I said, I think the Sixers are Knicks and Celtics proofing their lineup, and these draft picks are really showing it to me. But yeah, those are our predictions. We'll see if we're right. Don't worry, guys. Free agency starts on Sunday, so we'll get to see. KCP has already opted out. DeJounte Murray has gone from Atlanta to NOLA, so I guess he just has to go up the road, Trey, or down the road to NOLA. You know better than me. I guess it's down the road, right? Not
West.
Up the road.
I don't know what that would mean, but west. He'd have to go. So he's going southwest.
Yeah, he's going down. So, that's not literally, y'all, just down as far as down the map. So we'll move on to our shout out segments. This is where we shout out stories or are happening in our world or in our orbit, whether that be in sports or anywhere else. Trey, you want to start?
Yeah, I'll start. I'll say shout out to a friend of mine whose film I worked on back in, I guess it was, can't remember, it was sometime last year. But it's a short film called Pa. Short film, proof of concept. So it's, I think it actually just showed tonight up in Maryland. That's where he's from. They showed it a couple weeks ago here in Atlanta. So shout out to him. Shout out to Zach Burkett and making that film, giving me the opportunity to work on that film. And also double shout out, since we talked about the Lakers and Bronny tonight, I want to shout out my little brother, Sam Taylor, who is a big LeBron fan and has been very high on Bronny James and what he can be in the NBA. So shout out to him. I honestly thought that there was a chance Bronny would go undrafted. I was wrong on that. So shout out to my brother Sam on that.
Yeah, so shout out to the Florida Panthers. This is probably the most hockey we're going to talk ever on this show outside of Morgan's segment. Shout out to Florida Panthers winning their first ever Stanley Cup. Shout out to them. Whatever your opinions of the governor of Florida. Shout out to the Florida Panthers for winning and bringing a championship back to Florida, and their first championship ever, I believe. So shout out to them for making people happy. Trey and I know a little bit about celebrating first championships with how we acted when the Eagles won. So it's always good for somebody else to experience that. And I hope the parade goes well. So shout out to them. A little low end story here. Matthew Tkachuk, I think his name is, and Jason Tatum were really good friends. Apparently, when Tatum and him, they went to school together, and they sat next to each other on the school bus. Trey and I know a little bit about that. Sitting on the school bus, you get to have a seat buddy. Y'all talk about your little dreams, and their dream came through. They said that they were both going to win a championship, and it wound up happening within a few weeks of each other. So shout out to Kachuk and, Jason Tatum, although, Trey knows I hate giving the Celtics any type of due. But shout out to that, because I think that's a sweet story of two people who were school bus buddies that both became athletes and both won the championship. a few weeks apart. So I think that's a great little story there. Shout out to the class of 2024. I have nobody I'm related to that graduated from there, but I know Trey has 2 graduates in his childhood home. So shout out to all the members of the class of 2024, whether that's kindergarten, middle school, high school, college. Shouts out to all of y'all, class of 2024. Very proud and very happy for all of you, the ones that I've met and the ones that I haven't. Shouts out to all of y'all for making it another year through school, going to college, going to high school, going to middle school, going to elementary school, wherever you're going. Shouts out to you. Oh no, I do have a cousin that's going to Vanderbilt. Never mind. So shout out to I totally forgot. Shout out to Kennedy Johnson. Totally forgot. Going to Vanderbilt. I think she might play ball there. So go shout out to her. Totally forgot about that. So I lied. I did have a cousin that graduated this year. So shout out to her. And I believe she is going to Vanderbilt or a school in Tennessee. So shout out to her. So I believe that's, let me just see, class of 2024. Shout out to all the people drafted. Yeah, I think that's it for the shout out series. So now we get to he's not him, she's not her, and they aren't them. You want me to go first, or you want to?
Yeah, go ahead. You can go first.
All right. So my they aren't them. Oh my goodness, y'all! I've never seen people act so ridiculous over a draft pick, and Trey knows exactly what I'm talking about. Philadelphia sports fans, what are y'all doing, bro? The man paints his nails. So what? I've seen people speculating about this dude's sexuality, speculating about all sorts of things. I've seen people saying this is going to be the first openly gay Philly athlete, like all because the man paints his nails. Newsflash alert, y'all. Like Kelly Oubre Jr. also paints his nails, and he's straight. Like I don't know if y'all noticed this, but there were times on the court where Kelly Oubre had black nails, he had pink nails, I think he had purple nails. I think it depended on what uniform they were wearing. So he had nails that matched the uniform. Like we all loved Kelly Oubre Jr. I didn't see anybody question his sexuality. Jared McCain comes, and just for those of you that don't know, right? Jared McCain, like all athletes, Trey and I are both former athletes. Only reason we're not superstitious is because we're religious. But like most athletes are superstitious. So here's the story here, right? Jared McCain, when he was in high school, he painted his nails just to do it as a funny joke or whatever. Painted his nails, then went and played a game later that day, had the best game of his career after painting his nails. So it has nothing to do with his sexuality. It's just like all athletes, the man is superstitious. And he just paints his nails because, if he doesn't paint his nails, he feel like he'll have a bad game. And even if he was gay, none of y'all should care about that unless, as long as he puts the ball in the hoop. That's all we care about. Put the ball in the hoop. If he's a great person, that's all anybody should care about. All that matters in Philadelphia is, does he play hard and does he put the ball in the hoop when the Sixers need him to? That is it. I don't know why. Like, I enjoy this just because it shows who's still in the old school mentality, who's in the new school mentality. Like, it don't matter if the man paints his nails as long as the ball goes swish. It doesn't matter outside of that. He can paint his nails. He can put lipstick on. Like, Trey and I lived through the era of Dennis Rodman. Like, all y'all who talk about, oh, this is the most flamboyant player ever, y'all weren't here when Dennis Rodman was wearing wedding dresses to games. Like, shut up. Shut up. Unless you lived through that era of like Dennis Rodman playing in a playoff game, then going to WCW Nitro and joining the NWO, you haven't lived, and then showed up in a wedding dress or whatever. Like, you haven't lived. I know Trey is somewhere laughing in his mind because I'm showing my age here. But like, that if you haven't lived through that, he's not flamboyant. The man can paint his nails. He can do whatever he wants. That's my day aren't them. He's not him just because I don't really like this story. And to be fair to him, he denied it. But my he's not him to JJ Redick just because I don't like this story, bro. Obviously, I don't like the story. I hope it's not true. But I just like this girl who's a Duke alum, for those that don't know, came out, said that she's only been called the N-word once in her life, and that was in the middle of Duke University's campus, and that man became the I was about to say New York Lakers, the Los Angeles Lakers head coach. So Duke in the news for all the wrong reasons. That's also a day aren't them for me. Duke University, just because Mormon brainwashing, another Duke player may or may not have said the N-word. It's all, like I said, both are hearsay stories that none of us really know outside of the two people that did it. and God. Like, so, like, you know, it's just a horrible look, JJ. I know you said you didn't do it, but also that's what you have to say, even if you did do it. So, like, you know, just to be fair on both sides, is none of us know, but I hope that situation gets rectified, whether it's true or not. JJ got some explaining to do. And then another day aren't them, like I just said, Duke University, just because in the news for all the wrong reasons, Mormon brainwashing, the parents of the family of Kyle Filipkowski saying Duke knew and they kept it underground. Because I think it was kind of surprising that he was underperforming in the tournament, and now we know why. Right, so bad look on Duke's part, suppressing this story. Like I said earlier, biblical, right? What's done in the dark comes out in the light. Like, not really a good look for Duke basketball. And to be fair to them, I don't know. I don't cover Durham, North Carolina, so I know that there's some reporters that cover Duke that will probably be asking some questions about this stuff, and probably should be asking questions, because I don't understand how this did not come up until the NBA looked into it. So like, you know, it's a crazy thing. And then my day are them to Electronic Arts, baby. Trey knows what I'm about to say, man. Oh my goodness, I cannot wait. Next month, July 19th, July 16th, for those of you that pre-order it early. College Football 25 is back. Mark your calendars. Check it all out. King Kylan 2012. Like, let's go, all you college football fans, NCAA football fans. So excited. Thank you, EA, for bringing it back, getting the NIL stuff worked out. Like, so happy. Missed this game. Haven't played this since NCAA 14. I know some people thought it wouldn't come out, but it is coming out. What a time. July 19th. And then the next week, my birthday, starts the Olympics. So what a time. They are them to Electronic Arts. And from what I hear, Madden is looking good too. I know Trey's not really a Madden head as much anymore, but from what I hear, Madden is looking good too. And they fixed franchise, Trey, apparently. I'm done. It's all you.
Oh, okay.
If you want to add anything.
Well, I'm gonna I'm gonna go twofold with my. It's a they aren't them and a he ain't him. And the they aren't them is, we're gonna get a little political.
Oh Lord.
Donald Trump and Joe Biden. Now, for those who are listening, I'll always encourage people to vote. Go vote, right? November rolls around, go vote. But they just ain't it, right? They aren't them. And my he's not him is connected. I don't know if you heard about this, Kylan, but TJ Ward, who's a safety for the Broncos, or former safety for the Broncos, came out and made some comment on X about basically what he said was, if you're voting for Biden, you're an idiot, essentially. I think he said something like, if you're gonna vote for Biden, you're deaf, dumb, and blind.
That's why that was trending. Okay.
And so on both of those notes, right? Like, I don't understand, and this is why it's that they aren't them and the he's not him situation, is that if you want to vote for Donald Trump, go ahead and vote for Donald Trump. If you want to vote for Joe Biden, vote for Joe Biden, right? But don't go out and essentially shame people for voting for the person that they chose, right? TJ Ward could have easily just said nothing, right? But he decided to say, I'm convinced. I'm going to quote him directly from his. If you vote for Biden, I'm convinced you're, and he spelled your wrong. He spelled it Y-O-U-R instead of Y-O-U apostrophe R-E-R, deaf, dumb, and blind, which is just an ignorant thing to say, right? But he also could have just not said anything, you know. Of course, I'm of the mindset that people have freedom of speech to say what you want, but it also doesn't mean that I can't criticize you for what you say. And then you just kind of stole one, but I'm gonna go with a she is her, and a she is her is Asia Wilson for how she's played this. I mean, what is she averaging, like over 30? I mean, it's almost 30 points a game, or might even be more than 30 points a game, and she's just on a tear, right? Like, nobody's able to stop her. It doesn't matter who's guarding her, right? She's getting to the cup. She's averaging 28, 11, and it's like it's insane. So that's my she is her.
All right, look, man, I can't deny that. All I'll say about this, I won't get too political either, but since we're here, I might as well. I said it on Facebook, so you can look on Facebook and see it. But it doesn't really matter what happened yesterday. But no, none of these people. One is a convicted felon. You only really have two choices. Like it's either, like honestly, like I know some of y'all might be a Kennedy person, but like don't we some of y'all messed around and we're finding out now 8 years ago. So like, you look at the Supreme Court, you look at everything that's going on in this country. That's all damage from 2016 and 4 years of the former president. So that, like, I'm just going to say it like this. If you look around in this country and vote for who you want to vote for, but if you look around this country and you messed around in 2016 and voted third party, like this is all on, I have no other way to put it than to say this is all on you. Because if you wasted a vote in 2016, I encourage you to not waste it in 2024 and just accept the fact that you only have two choices here.
Yep. The greater of two evils, unfortunately.
Yeah, so, we would all love to have better choices, but this is what we have. So do with that what you will. And that's all I'm going to say without telling people who to vote for. So with that, thank you, Trey. Thank you, Jovan. For joining us, standing in on Morganstead. You'll probably see more Trey, especially if some other options fall through. Not that he's not a really good option, as y'all seen. It's just that he's not in the sports media field, so he doesn't like want to take somebody's spot. But you'll probably see more of him. So yeah, and Jovan as well, and Matt, and some of the other recurring characters, and some new ones probably too. So we thank you all for listening. We kind of got into a political spill there. I say that like I try to as best we can keep the politics off this, but sometimes the stuff overflows, as it did with Trey's story about TJ Ward. So sometimes that happens. So yeah, so thank you all so much for listening. Congrats to Morgan and Dan getting married tomorrow. Shout out to them. Girly good. Go enjoy, and happy wedded bliss to both Dan and Morgan. So happy marriage or pre-marriage to them, because they get married tomorrow. So happy pre-marriage, and have a good time, have a great honeymoon, enjoy Indonesia, safe travels there. And we're gonna keep doing. You're making it do what it do in there in Morganstead. So you'll see Trey more. I thank him for coming on. So Trey, before we go, tell the people where they can find you. Got a YouTube, got an Instagram. Where are you?
Yes. Kyla mentioned my Instagram. It is Mr. Taylor III, which means Mr. Taylor the Third. So MrTaylor My Twitter, if you weren't able to figure out in the last 2 hours, is my first name and my last name backwards. So as I pronounce it, Eknorok Rolyet. Also go check out if you go to my Instagram and my bio, you'll find it. But my YouTube channel, Mr. Taylor Movies, you'll see a couple short films on there. As Kyla mentioned, I am not in the sports commentation or journalism arena. I am a filmmaker and an accountant. So go give some love to those short films on my YouTube channel, Mr. Taylor Movies.
All right, y'all. We'll see y'all later. Have a great weekend. Enjoy. Oh, and especially if this comes either after or before. So happy 4th of July as well. And enjoy your holiday week and weekend. And we'll be back sooner or later. So see y'all later. See y'all next week.
Peace.